Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to the live webinar on the OECD's Young Associates Program. My name is Shweta Trivedi. I'm the Head of Talent Management and Analytics Group at the OECD, and I will be moderating today's webinar. So the Young Associates Program is an exciting opportunity that offers gaining first professional experience at the cutting edge of public policy development and analysis. Over the course of the next hour, we will present the OECD, its work, its impact, as well as details on the Young Associates Program and how to succeed in the application and selection process. We also have two current Young Associates who will join us and discuss their experience. And we will conclude with a Q&A session where you'll be able to ask any questions you may have. So I invite you to send your questions in via the chat now, if you'd like. I also have the pleasure immediately now to welcome the Head of Human Resources at the OECD, Daniel Fuster, for his opening message. Daniel, over to you.
Thank you, Shweta, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all of you, wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this live webinar around the Young Associates Program here at the OECD, which we consider, and I think that you will learn during today's webinar, it's a great opportunity that the OECD offers for career development to bachelor graduates that have recently come into looking for job opportunities. So we're very thrilled to be here with you this afternoon here in Paris. This is the third time that we organize this live session, and I think that it's a great opportunity for us to connect with all of you as potential candidates for the program and provide you with information about the selection process and the requirements and elements underpinning the program. The OECD for more than 60 years has been, as I am sure you know, a catalyst for change in many aspects of public policy, with the hope of and the goal of shaping policies to foster prosperity, equality and opportunity and well-being for all member countries and beyond in the world. Together with governments, policymakers, high experts at the OECD and citizens at large, we work at establishing evidence-based international standards and finding solutions on a wide range of social, economic, technological, environmental, and other challenges that hopefully end up in raising the living standards in our organizations and underscoring the values that the OECD represent in terms of democratic market economy and equality. I have to say that the diversity of our staff is one of the core elements of the OECD's culture and even its strategy. We try to bring individuals with diverse perspectives into the organization to represent also our membership, the 38 member countries that we have, but precisely because each person and each background enhances the points of view that we discuss, the outputs that we provide governments and citizens alike around the world. And for these reasons, we are committed to recruiting talented individuals from diverse nationalities, academic disciplines, and backgrounds at all levels, and even more so in this program. The Young Associates Program is not your run-of-the-mill program. We inhabit a very special niche. So we have designed this program to give undergraduates that have already accrued some good university studies at the bachelor degree an opportunity to gain substantive work experience in policy research and analysis. And as you may know, if you're job seekers more broadly, we sit with this program at a niche where internships do not necessarily reach, and other programs in other international organizations do not inhabit. So we're very proud that we provide this opportunity to gain experience at a moment in your career where you already have some good elements going on in terms of your education and maybe even some preliminary experience before coming into the program. The other salient characteristic I want to highlight is the duration of our Young Associates Program, which actually talks to the commitment that we have in the program and in bringing young and fresh talent into the organization. It is a program that provides for 24 months assignments. So it does give you a range of time in which to develop with the different areas of the OECD that you're paired with, to develop a very good and robust development of work that is creating an impact, and also a good experience for yourselves to take on for later studies or other job experiences. But also the program helps us to provide you as candidates and young associates eventually when they come in a development and quite frankly a springboard that will take you into graduate studies, hopefully in prestigious universities, we're hoping, or even to other job opportunities in the different markets that you may want to explore. We see great importance in actively supporting the success and development of young associates when they join us. And in this respect, the program has as one of its key elements mentorship for each young associate, which they will receive from managers, but also among the very active peer-to-peer interactions that we try to promote within the young associates cohort. And I'm sure you will learn from young associates in today's panels more about this. Since the Young Associates program launched, we've recruited 59 young associates from 26 different nationalities. And as I said, all of these people have contributed to the core work programs of the OECD in different topics such as energy, environment, financial systems, global relations, tax, trade, and much more. A lot of our former YAPs pursue master's and PhD degrees, often at prestigious institutions with full scholarships. And the evidence of the success of the program has been very, very patent to us. And one thing that I like to say always is that many of the YAPs eventually return to the OECD and all become real ambassadors to the OECD brand. So I won't delay much more my opening words. We're really, really happy to see you all here. I really encourage you to ask questions, to learn as much and take in as much as possible from this webinar. Big thanks to Shweta, Martin, the team, to Iris, to Daniela, to all that are participating today in the call. And please do raise any questions and any doubts that you may have on the program. We're here precisely for this purpose. So I'll pass it on back to the team and wishing you a great seminar. Bye.
Thank you, Daniel, for sharing more about the program and emphasizing how critical it is for the OECD to involve diverse individuals and perspectives in the organization's work towards bettering policies and better lives. I'd now like to pass the floor to my colleague Nadav Shental, who is the Deputy Head of Talent Management and Analytics, and he will provide an overview of the OECD, the different policy areas, our work and impact. Over to you, Nadav.
So in the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to present you with the OECD, its mission, and some of the work that we're doing. So let's start by talking about the OECD and providing some context. The OECD is an international organization, like other that you may know, like the UN or the EU. But what's special about the OECD is that we are working on better policies for better lives. And in that respect, we try to help countries, members and beyond, to improve the well-being of their citizens across different policy domains. So a few figures about our membership. Currently, we have 38 member countries, but we're growing. But we also work very closely with different partners around the world. The OECD economies currently represent about 50% of the world GDP. But with those member countries and partner countries, we represent around 80% of the world trade and investment. In this slide, you can see OECD members in blue, and you can see that we have membership across different parts of the globe. And in green, you can see our accession countries. So those are countries that actually applied to become OECD members and are in the process of accession. And we also work with key partners, and you can see some of them in gray, including China, India, and South Africa. In the context of the Young Associates Program, I would mention that you have to be OECD nationals, so nationals of the OECD member countries, in order to be eligible for the program. Some facts about the OECD. The OECD was established in its current format in 1961, so more than 60 years ago. But the OECD origin goes back to the Marshall Plan and the reconstruction of Europe in 1948. When it comes to the OECD budget, we are mostly funded by members' contribution. According to their size, is the US with about 20% of our annual budget. When it comes to locations, the OECD is located, or its headquarters is located in Paris. So you have to take that into account because all the vacancies that are included in the next round of the Young Associates Program are in Paris. So take that into account. When it comes to other offices, you can see some of them on the screen, but we have others that are outside Paris, France. And the last point I would mention now is about our languages. There are two official languages to the OECD, English and French. And we often receive the question from candidates if they need to be fluent in both languages when they apply. So I can reassure you and say that it's not required to be fluent in both languages. So you have to be fluent in one of them. We would like to talk a bit about the work that we're doing at the OECD. And you can see here that the work that we do involves different stakeholders, mostly governments, but also other international organizations, the private sector, civil society, and beyond. If we can divide the OECD work into 4 pillars, I would start with data collection and analysis. That's actually the bread and butter of the OECD. We collect huge amounts of data. We analyze it in order to come up with different insights. That fits into the discussion and consultation that we have with our members across more than 300 working groups and committees that are dedicated to different policy areas. And the end result is usually standard setting and different policies that support governments in improving the well-being of citizens. And the last point in this respect would be about implementation, because we can write very interesting reports, articles, collect a lot of data, but at the end of the day, we really want our member countries and beyond to implement those policies in order to see a real difference in the lives of citizens across OECD member countries. And as I said before, beyond going to a global reach for some of the standards that we've actually established. Maybe just one example of the exercises or the tools that we use is peer review, where 2 or more countries look at the policies of a third country in order to support and see what needs to be improved. So that's one of the tools that we use quite often across different policy areas. We talked about policies, and here in this slide, you can see some of them. So going from taxation to transport to trade, from education to energy to economy. So you can see it's a very wide array of policies that we do at the OECD. I would maybe say that except for security or defense that is done by other organizations like NATO, the OECD actually works on policies that encompass the different domains of a national government. So you can see how it reflects in those areas that you can see here on the screen. But maybe we can give a few examples, and we can start with education and with the PISA exam. So you may know that last week, the OECD has actually provided or informed our members on the results of the PISA exam for 2022, which included more than 90 countries and almost 3 million students worldwide. And through this exercise, we can evaluate on the effectiveness of education systems across different countries. And we have gathered huge amounts of data with this exercise on schools, on regions, on countries, in order to assess their, as I said, effectiveness and how they can actually improve. So again, one example around education. Another example is with respect to energy. The OECD is working very closely with the International Energy Agency, which is one of the affiliated bodies of the OECD that works on providing advice as to a secure and sustainable energy for all. So again, policies that relate to energy across different domains. And maybe the last example is about tax. The OECD hosts the International Tax Forum that works with countries, OECD members and beyond, in order to improve the equity around taxation and more generally, the international taxation framework. So those are a few examples, and you can find more if you search on our website or go to the iLibrary. You can do that by looking for a specific work that we do with a country, or you can search by policy area. So I'll stop here and hand back to Shweta for the rest of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadav, for sharing with us more information about the OECD. I can see lots of questions coming in. We are actually answering some as we go, and some will be answered in this next section that Martin will run. So I would now like to pass the floor to Martin, who is also in the talent management and analytics group, to tell you more about the program itself, the application, and the recruitment process. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you, Shweta. So I would like to briefly introduce the program and tell you a bit more about the recruitment process and how to prepare for different steps. But first, what is the Young Associates program? It is really a flagship career opportunity that the OECD offers, and it's one of the few such programs that are offered by different international organizations. And we really aim to bring motivated candidates straight from their bachelor's degrees in order for them to allow them to gain professional experience in policy analysis and advice. And give them a competitive advantage when they're applying for graduate studies through their work at the OECD, but also through being mentored by their supervisors. It is really a flagship opportunity, and a specific element is that the Young Associates work at the OECD for 2 years, but after the 2 years, they're expected to leave the organization and continue in their career. It is really our strong interest to find, nurture, and develop strong talent at the beginning of their careers and prepare them for successful future. I will just briefly mention the main requirements, which were also discussed briefly previously. So you need to obtain bachelor's degree between January 2023 and September 2024. You need to be a member of a national of an OECD member country, and you should not be, or you must not be enrolled or hold a master's degree already. With regards to the specific positions that we offer this year, there are 10 positions that are offered, ranging from those focusing on energy, environment, and climate, all the way to anti-money laundering and terrorist financing and transformation of health systems. The deadline for applying is midnight 21st December this year, and unfortunately, we will not be able to accept any applications after the deadline. So now a little bit more about the recruitment process and timeline. So as you may know, the vacancies are now posted on our website. You can submit your application until 21st of December, and after the deadline, we will review all the applications. And in January, we will screen the eligibility. So all those candidates that are eligible will be invited to an online assessment. And those that are successful, we will then review their applications. Manually, we don't use any AI screening of applications or tools. And then the next step would be video interviews with us in HR, followed by written test and interview with the hiring team. So if you make it all the way to this stage, you can expect that in April, you will know whether you are a selected candidate and if you will be able to take up duty in Paris in September next year. So now a little bit more about how to apply. So when you visit our website, you will see our application form that includes different sections on experience, education, and also cover letter. So you will need to fill out the form with all the relevant information and include your cover letter under the message to hiring manager. So there's no specific CV format, or you don't need to compile it in a PDF or send it by email. It needs to be submitted online. So now a little bit more to give you some details and tips on how to prepare your resume or CV and cover letter. So the studies show that around 40% of candidates spend less than 45 seconds when they're reading job vacancy and when they apply. And that's why very often majority of candidates are not qualified. They don't meet the requirements for the job that they are applying to. So we would really encourage you to read the job vacancy carefully, to be able to understand what are the responsibilities, what are the requirements, skills. And when you're reading the vacancy, highlight the most important skills and duties, highlight the keywords. And also, before you start writing your application, reflect on your motivation, on your experience and background, and think about how you can add value in that position that you're applying to. Then when you proceed to writing your application, always tailor it to the position you're applying to. So if you apply to more than one young associates roles, always tailor it to the specific position you're applying to. We would suggest and encourage you to give details and sufficient context on relevant experience and achievements from your past, and also link your actions to outcomes and improvements and how you can contribute. It's also good to quantify if possible. You can use different examples, you can use numbers, percentages, budgets that can really make your case stronger and show the alignment between your background and your experience and the position. It might be particularly helpful also to include information on work experience and achievements. While for the Young Associate program, it is not required to have prior professional experience. If you have some relevant experience, please mention that in your application. Since majority of the positions are focusing on reviewing policies and making policy recommendations, it's also particularly helpful to mention different papers that you've written or reports or different relevant research that you conducted, as well as voluntary and extracurricular activities. Since the aim of the program is to build a professional foundation of young associates going forward in their career, it is also quite important to mention in your application your motivation to pursue a postgraduate degree after the program, and how you expect the program would help you in doing so. When writing your application, you remember the keywords that I mentioned in the beginning. So it might be helpful if you use the keywords that you highlighted and try to build your application around those. We believe that the keywords can help you easier link your profile, your experience with the position that you're applying to. Then after the application, as I mentioned, online assessment is one of the assessments that you would be invited to if you are eligible for the program. So the online assessment is an online aptitude computer-based assessment that helps us better understand candidates in 3 areas, which are their reasoning ability, their motivation drivers, and personality traits. This is not personality assessment or IQ test, because there's no one personality that we are looking for. It rather highlights different competencies that candidates could have, and that would align and would fit for with the needs of the program. So as such, it's not really possible to prepare for the assessment, but we can give you some examples of what you will be asked during the assessment. So when it comes to personality, this will be around 5 minutes, and you need to choose between two statements that better and choose the one that better resonates with you. When it comes to motivation, it looks at what motivates you on a daily basis. So in around 12 minutes, you'll be again need to decide and select one of the two statements that would better align with your preferences and your motivation. And lastly, when it comes to reasoning section, this will look at your ability to solve problems. So you'll have 10 minutes and each question will be timed, and you can see on the screen examples of scenarios or questions that you need to solve, looking at your reasoning abilities. Then another round of assessment will be the video interview, which will be conducted with colleagues in HR. And this stage really is in a format of pre-recorded video interview. So you'll be able to do it on an online platform. You'll have around 5 questions. And then doing so, you'll have specific time to read the question, and then you will need to record your answers. In total, it will be around 30 minutes. But in this interview, we really look at your motivation, why you would like to join the OECD, why you would like to join the program, how you can contribute, what do you expect to gain from the program. We also look at your core competencies, which are required for the role. And as I mentioned, we can also ask about how do you expect that the program will help you shape your future career. We included 3 sample questions, so we have a better idea or better understanding what we would ask. But if we should give you some tips on how to prepare, really reflect on your motivation, on your background, on your experience, and how you could contribute to the OECD and in that specific role that you're applying to. It's also important to review and familiarize yourself with the required core competencies, which are indicated in the job vacancies, and with the core competency framework that you can find on our website. We conduct interviews and questions that we ask are competency-based questions. So we can ask you scenario-based questions or hypothetical situations. So it's important to prepare for those. And to help you, it can be helpful to use different interview techniques, for example, STAR or CAR. And using those techniques, you can really provide structured, clear, and concise answer. Also, to help you to prepare and really clearly and in a good structure to answer questions, it would be good if you prepare different examples of situations that you experienced in your past. Successful candidates after this assessment will then be invited to an assessment with the directors, with the hiring teams. So the written test specifically is conducted via email. So you'll receive typically 2 to 3 questions, and you will have around 1 to 2 hours to answer them and send them back. The written test is really focused on testing your technical skills and knowledge of the policy area, your writing skills, your drafting skills, and in many cases also your language skills. I would mention here that the tests are evaluated anonymously, so there will be no bias. The evaluators will not see your name or who completed the test. Again, we included 2 sample questions, so you can have a better understanding what kind of questions the written test might include. And to give you some tips on how to prepare for such a written test, it's really important that you familiarize yourself with the work of the hiring team, including the professional terminology. To do that, I would suggest that you read the last or latest publications and documents and reports that the OECD, but also other institutions around the world produced and written and are related to the team's work. It is also good to review the job description, look at the responsibilities, and try to anticipate what kind of questions we could ask, because the written test is always relates to the position. So you can think about different concepts or issues that are related, or specific tasks that you can be asked. Of course, you cannot anticipate exact questions, but it can at least help you to shape and structure your preparation phase. And if you do that, it might be good, if you don't have experience with such written tests, to ask a colleague or a friend or family member, maybe to come up with 1-2 questions, and you can try to answer them, so you can see how you feel responding or completing such questions in a short time. So that would be our advice when it comes to the written test. And then the last step and the last assessment would be the interview with the hiring team. So this is typically 30-40 minutes. You would meet and talk with the hiring manager, some other colleagues from the team, and some other colleagues from the team and colleagues from HR. So in the interview, we test your motivation, further test your core competencies and skills. But also, since this will be conducted by the hiring team, they will also evaluate and test your technical skills and knowledge. So in order to prepare, this is really everything that I mentioned in the previous video interview section would apply again. But it's really important that you show the understanding of the position and what you can contribute. So we also included some of the sample questions, and as you can see, this might be more technical, since in the HR video interview, we will not really touch upon the technical skills, because those are really different and depend on the position. But in this interview with the hiring team, you can really expect that they will ask you technical questions as well. So this is it from me, and we'll be able to, I think, to elaborate on that a bit further later on. But back to you, Shweta.
Thank you, Martin, for guiding us through the recruitment process and sharing some important insights on how to prepare a compelling application for the different parts of the assessments. So next we have 2 current young associates who will share their own experience. We have with us Iris Ryu, who joined the Center for Entrepreneurship SMEs Regions and Cities in 2022. And we have Daniela van den Brink, who started working in the Directorate for Education and Skills in September this year. I'd like to remind you to send questions in the chat. We will have the opportunity to answer some of them at the end. We are answering several as we go. There are also a lot of repeat questions, so I encourage you to read some of the answered questions also before you submit your question. But next, let's go to Iris and Daniela. So if you could perhaps, maybe the first question, briefly introduce yourself and tell us what you do at the OECD.
Thank you, Shweta. I'll go first. So hello, my name is Iris. I work at the Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Regions, and Cities, and I work specifically in the Regional Development and Multi-Level Governance Division. I work a lot on the database and performing quantitative analyses, along with supporting a lot of fundraising efforts and communications as well. And prior to my my current position at the OECD, I studied mathematics and Middle Eastern studies at New York University, Abu Dhabi. And I also had an internship and also consultancy at a smaller international organization called the Global Green Growth Institute prior to the OECD.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniela, and I'm working at the Directorate for Education and Skills, which is the OECD Directorate dedicated to improving quality, equity, and efficiency of education and training systems around the world. And I work in the director's office. So our director is a man called Andreas Schleicher, and I help coordinate inputs and mobilize knowledge from the various teams across our directorate. And my main responsibility is integrating these inputs and mobilizing this knowledge and putting it into briefings for bilateral meetings between the Secretary General, the Deputy Secretary Generals, and our director, and relevant stakeholders, which are usually ministers of education.
Thank you both. Can I ask you what motivated you to apply for the program and to get this professional experience before you continue with your further studies? Perhaps, Daniela, you can go first, followed by Iris.
Sure. So I worked for a year following my bachelor's, and I really enjoyed it. I really appreciated how practically oriented work is compared to the mainly theoretical nature of studies. So I wasn't super eager to go back to school, but then I also realized that my options were limited to find good employment in Europe without a master's degree, and I didn't want to pursue an unpaid or a severely underpaid internship that I would probably have to finance myself. So when I saw the YAP program on the internet, I felt super lucky to have found it, and based on my search, it was the only program of its kind where you could gain 2 years of professional experience in an international organization with a competitive salary and other employment benefits. And of course, if you get the opportunity, I do think it positively impacts your future trajectory.
I resonate a lot with Daniela on what she said. And in my case, because I was already working in the international organization field, I knew that I wanted to delve a bit deeper into the professional like early career that I had, but at the same time I wasn't really sure of what my graduate school like studies would be headed towards. So before making that decision, I wanted to have a further work experience and make sure to like confirm my academic and work interest. And I chose the OECD Young Associate Program because I think the OECD experience really gives you sort of like a midway between research experience and also professional experience as well. So because I was also interested in doing research, I think yeah, like at that point I thought this was clearly a good balance to have.
And if I can also just quickly add one more reason, so that I was also looking into master's programs, and the master's programs that stood out to me were ones that were geared towards people who already had work experience or even mid-career professionals. So that was another motivating factor in me gaining professional experience before pursuing a master's.
Great, thank you. So based on that then, perhaps you can just give us a quick, either a highlight or a challenge that you've experienced in terms of the experience as a YAP that you've had so far.
Maybe I can go first. So for me, I think the biggest merit of the Young Associate Program is that you're here in the organization for 2 years, which is a pretty long period of time. And you really get to have a lot of opportunities within the organization. For instance, I think one of the highlights that I had was when I was able to give a presentation at the Korean embassy for people visiting from the Korea Development Institute Policy Academy. And I also participated in the R and Python community of practice. So I volunteered to be on the executive board, and as part of that, I got to propose a data hackathon, which is an internal hackathon with the OECD staffs, and I was able to co-organize the event. I think because the Young Associate Program like really gives you these precious like 2 years and valuable 2 years as with that, you can really make use of it and try to develop your new skills, learn about your like interests and inspirations.
Yeah, I'm still quite fresh, but I still have experienced some highlights. I think because the recruitment process is so selective, you're entrusted with a lot of responsibility quite quickly. So I've been able to take charge of some briefings, and I've noticed how much I've improved in developing them. And because there's quite high demand for these briefings, I work on them quite frequently, and I get to better understand the challenges that countries around the world are facing in terms of education, and how they're approaching these challenges, and how the OECD can support countries in these endeavors. So I'm just learning a lot in terms of content, education policy, but also in terms of developing my skills.
Great, thank you both. Tell me a little bit about how so far, and I know, Daniela, you're very early in the very early stages of your experience. How has the program to date shaped your future career growth outside of some of the things that you've just already mentioned? Iris, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I think the young was so to the career path in international organizations and also public policy. And for me, in terms of my academic interest, I wasn't like sure in the beginning, but now I think it is still broad. I have a lot of interest, but I realized and also confirmed my passion for regional and urban rural development and territorial inequalities. So I think this really puts me in a robust position to apply for master's degrees and thinking ahead about my future career.
Building off of what Iris said, yeah, a bit hard for me to tell so soon, but I do think it will enhance my satisfaction in a related master's program in the future, because I'll be better equipped to attach theory to reality based off of the experiences I have at OECD. And I think that if I ever want to return to the OECD after the 2-year assignment and after getting my master's, I'll have a lot of organizational knowledge and relevant skills to build up on.
Great, thank you. And finally, one final question before we move to some of the live ones. What would you advise potential applicants who are watching us today to prepare their applications or any other stage of the assessment? Any top tips from you both?
Shall I go first? So I think this was already covered in Martin's presentation, which was very comprehensive. But really, I would highly recommend to read the published papers and the websites of the team or the directorate that you're interested in applying, and all the materials published, and learn the terms and what language they use and the concepts, and try to incorporate them into your resume and cover letter. And this knowledge will also be useful for the written test as well. And in terms of your like the real content of your resume and CV, try to highlight relevant past work experience, or even like experiences that you had at school that really like underscore the skills that you have that are valued at the organization, which is like drafting and like data analysis or communications. It would depend entirely on depending on the job position that you're applying for, but really try to highlight those skills by giving concrete examples and evidence of your past experience.
I think my number one piece of advice would be to not stress, even though it's hard for me to tell you that. but maybe a way you can try to not stress so much in the in-between moments while you're waiting is to make sure you have exciting backup plans so that the prospect of not getting the job isn't super devastating, and to look at the recruitment process as a learning experience. I feel like I learned so much about myself, about developing interview skills, about practicing writing under pressure during the process. So I would walk away from the experience with learning, even if I didn't get the position. I would say for the interviews to prepare examples, as Martin said. One thing I did is I fed the OECD's core competencies into ChatGPT, and I asked it to produce a list of potential interview questions based off of the core competencies, and then I prepared responses in practice with my friends and family. And actually, I think 2 of the questions that ChatGPT had produced came up in my HR interview. And even the ones that didn't, I at least had kind of this database of examples that was super useful to me, both in the HR interview and in the final interview. So just have fun with it, and work smarter, not harder.
Great, thank you. That's a great tip. I'm sure many people will be using our new core competency framework now to assess what some of those questions will be. So thank you both for your insightful responses. You've been really helpful in helping us understand the feel of the Young Associates program. So we've received a lot of interesting questions from our audience. We do have limited time, so we won't get to all of them, but let's start. We'll run through these, and I will ask either Martin or Nadav to answer some questions, or I will ask Iris or Daniela based on the questions. So maybe this one first. This is a question for Nadav and Martin. Could someone who graduated from their bachelor's in 2022 apply for this round of Young Associates?
Maybe I can answer that question. So if you graduated before 1st January 2023, unfortunately, you would not be eligible to apply for this round. Depending on your education and experience, you might look at regular job opportunities that we offer at the OECD, which are outside of the scope of the Young Associates program.
Great, thank you, Martin. How long is, and this is a question perhaps that Iris and Daniela, you can answer, typically, how long is a day as a Young Associate?
I can take you through my day-to-day. I came into the office at 9 and I plan on leaving around 6. We usually have a lunch break of around an hour. Obviously, all of the planning of your day is up to you and your supervisor. It depends how much your supervisor provides structure. I have been pretty independent. I hope that answers your question. Maybe Iris wants to add.
Well, no, I think it's good. It's well, I think also the OECD, a lot of the directorates and divisions, they're very like project based. So I think depending on the project cycle, your day may look very different. So some days it's just normal 9 to 6, very peaceful with a breeze. Other times, you may have to put in a bit of extra hours to make the project work. But yeah, overall, yeah, I think I agree with what Danny said. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yes, as a Young Associate, you are considered an official, and so as with any official and any projects and priorities, your day and priorities shift. So some days are longer, some days are shorter, but as Daniela said, it's typically 9 to 6 are the typical hours across the OECD. Okay, so another question, I think, Nadav, perhaps you can answer this one. Can you be a dual national as long as one of your nationalities is that of an OECD country?
Thank you, Shweta. So the answer is yes. As long as you have an OECD nationality, you can apply to the Young Associates program. Just to mention that you have to mention that nationality, the OECD membership nationality, as the first one when you apply. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadav. Martin, perhaps this is for you. There's quite a few questions here that are related to cover letters. So how long should a cover letter be? I want to revise my cover letter. Can I reapply for the position because I can't edit my cover letter? So perhaps some words on cover letters, Martin.
Yes, so I would reiterate that the cover letter needs to be inserted in the hiring message to hiring manager. So there's no specific form or specific section where you can upload an attachment. As such, there is no necessarily limit as to the length of the message or of the cover letter, but we would suggest that it's not longer than one A4 page. And if you want to make a change or update your application, this is unfortunately not possible after you submit your application. And in that case, you would need to reapply and resubmit your whole application again.
Many thanks, Martin. Another question. Again, this is related to what you had answered, Nadav. Can I apply for a residence permit in an OECD member country, but I'm not a national?
So you have to be a so-called full national of that OECD member country in order to apply. And I think the best way is to see if you have, for example, a passport of that country. If you don't, or you're in the process, or you're just a resident, unfortunately, you won't be able to apply. And you have to wait until you have the full nationality in order to apply to OECD official vacancies, including the young associates.
Thank you, Nadav. We have several questions here in the chat that are related to if you have a master's degree and whether you're eligible. We've answered those in the answered section to say you are not eligible if you already have a master's degree. But then there are lots of follow-up questions asking about putting their master's degrees on hold. Between Nadav and Martin, perhaps you can answer that. Lots of questions about whether I can pause my master's degree, I can put it on hold, or I can unenroll if I'm successful for YAP, and the master's might be their backup plan. So if either one of you could say a few words on that, please.
Maybe I can start. I would say that honesty is the best policy. So don't apply if you already started a master's, because you're not going to be eligible. And this is something that would encourage you not to do, especially given the fact, as Daniela and others said, that it's a very competitive process. So in that sense, it's going to be a shame if you just drop out of your master's just to apply to the program. So I would suggest that you think about other OECD opportunities following your master's, including, if you're still an enrolled student, the OECD internship program.
Thanks, Nadav. Martin, one for you. Is there any reasonable accommodations available for the time frame for the online and written assessments for people that are applying?
That's a good question. So when it comes to the accommodation regarding the time frame, we have limited ability to extend different deadlines. For example, if you have other commitments, because we have quite strict timeline, and we need to complete the selection process in spring next year. So it would also depend on the case. So if you have any issues and if you're invited to an assessment, you're free to flag that or communicate that to us by responding to the invitation. And maybe I would mention also, in case you have any disability and you would need any kind of accommodation, this might be provided on an ad hoc basis. So in case there is any issue or any request that you would have, we would also ask you to communicate that to us after you receive an invitation.
Great, thank you, Martin. Another question here. What kind of work experience would be seen as valuable for the YAP application process? I will open it up to all four of you to answer that.
So maybe I can start and say that actually you don't have to have a professional experience when you apply to the Young Associate program. If you have some, that's of course an asset. But we would encourage you to also list things that relate to volunteer work, relevant coursework, any other types of activity that you think would highlight or make your application more visible. But I would also like to hear from the young associates to see what are their thoughts around what kind of elements candidates might want to emphasize in their submission.
I'd like to jump in and really agree with what Nadav has pointed out. For instance, to highlight my drafting skills, I actually talked about a small like capstone research project that I did at school, which is not related to work experience at all, but it really showed my ability to carry out research independently and also draft the paper my own. So I think these are some of the like qualities that you can try to like think about. And so maybe you can do a self-reflection of what you've done at school as well, and try to highlight those skills that would be needed for each job positions.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
And
I
perhaps...
think.
Oh, sorry, Daniela, carry on.
Sorry. Well-described examples, no matter where they come from, be it work, education, volunteering, will be beneficial to you in describing how you will meet the demands of the job. But I did have 1 year of relevant work experience as I worked on a research project on education innovation at a university in the Netherlands.
Thanks, Daniela, and thanks everyone. There are a lot of repeat questions around OECD member countries and not knowing. I suggest you go to the website to understand whether your country of nationality is a member country or not. Those are very, very easy questions to get answered from our website. Another one for Daniela and Iris here. What are the potential benefits of participating in the YAP program to enhance future master's degree applications?
I can maybe go first. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for the young associates to meet like current managers or also other staffs at I guess more of a senior level positions. And these events are also hosted by the HR team at the OECD. And these are valuable opportunities to get to know more about the organization and the public policy work at a more like experience level. So like these insights that you can really like get to know, like get to have is really like valuable when like preparing your applications. And there are also sometimes like visits from like universities and other scholarship programs to the OECD for the young associate programs or the I think the JPOs also, I'm not sure, but yeah, there are also those sessions that are held at the OECD as well. So these are, I think, some of the opportunities that you can take on that would be helpful for the graduate applications.
And building on what Iris was saying before, your experience on the job will give you confirmation and guidance on what master's programs you will want to pursue in the future. For example, sometimes I'll be at work and I'll be reading something. I'm like, oh my goodness, this would be super interesting to pursue in the form of a master's thesis, for instance.
Thank you very much. Okay, another question here. Would all candidates be assessed equally if submitted before the due date, or is early submission prioritized? Nadav, Martin?
I can answer that one. So it doesn't matter when you apply. If you apply today or you apply on the 21st of December, this will not have an impact on the success of your application. But we would really encourage you to not leave it until 11:30 on the 21st of December, because you know, as how it works, there can always be some technical issue, and it might prevent you from applying. So I would suggest to at least apply 1 or 2 days before the deadline. But the time of your application will not have any impact on whether you'll be considered or not in the future of the selection process.
Thank you, Martin. One last question. Can you use university professors for references?
The answer is yes.
Great. Thank you very much. I am very conscious of time, and we will continue to answer some of these questions as we wrap up. Of course, you have access to our website and our portal for more information. So let me close by thanking you today for joining us. I'd like to thank our speakers who've shared very important information that can help you better understand the program and how to succeed in the application process. You will be able to find more of our recording on today's webinar on our website. We have just sent the link in the chat because I see some of you have been asking for slides, etc. If you are planning to apply, do not forget that the deadline is midnight Paris time, so it's the 21st of December Paris time, and we look forward to receiving your applications and hopefully welcoming you to the OECD as the next cohort of the Young Associates program in 2024. Many thanks. Have a good day.